The form of violence is clear here. Walls and fences built by barbed words and calculating deeds. This is how it happens. A bolt out of a shimmering, whispering blue. One tide after another. All the lessons you wish you'd learned all come at once. Life invades the ordinary. You set sail, and all you want is this harbor's embrace.
Look at what the tide brings in. What the tide brings in. The push of the tide. The pull of the sea. Hush, push. Hush, hush.
The drawbridge of ignorance, fortified by a moat filled with silence. Yes, the form of violence is clear here, and that is silence. There is nothing else to tell you. Look at what the tide brings in. What the tide brings in.
The push of the tide.
The pull of the sea.
I found this shoe. Who set sail in this shoe? Can you imagine what currents must have separated it from its owner? Will you sail that nautical mile?
Imagine if you will. Imagine, if you can, that you had but one chance to escape. That you were those masses of ordinary people gathering at a border. That your one chance to live was to run. Imagine that day when it was you for whom the tide has turned.
Look at what the tide brings in. What the tide brings in. The push of the tide. The pull of the sea.
If your world tipped on its axis, what would you do? If a volcano erupted, its fire and ash swept your home into the sea. If all the winds of the world rose up and clashed, breaking your house apart. If gangs were roaming the streets and wiping out all of your family.
If the rain falls day after day, night after night, until the rivers become so swollen that they burst their banks.
Or worse, that the river your life depends on silts up. There are no more fish.
The
And
boats,
the boats can't make it out to open sea. Imagine that day, when it was you for whom the tide has turned.
The pull of the tide, the push of the sea, the pull of the tide, the push of the sea.
If one day it is decreed, who you love is not acceptable, and your love makes you a pariah.
If one day your neighbor is not your neighbor, but your enemy, if the darkness came, then where would you seek light?
You wake up one morning and your country was not your country anymore. Your country has broken away, decided to go it alone.
Or your country has simply fallen into the sea.
Imagine that your face no longer fits. The tide has turned. It's turned.
It is. I can see it turning.
Imagine if the language you speak is banned.
Imagine if some madman declares all of your history dead.
Imagine that your country has the last drop of oil, and your neighbor wants that last drop, and the only thing in the way is you. The earth cracks open. Home has fallen between the cracks, and the road ahead is blocked, and you must leave, and there's nowhere to go. On that day, will you run?
We are the border of chaos now.
We are on the brink.
Will humanity's boat pull itself back from the brink?
Or will we let another boat sink?
Build a wall, build a wall, build it high, build it high, build a fence with barbed wire vines, guiding up to the sky. Build a wall, build a wall, build it high, build it high, build a fence. Push back the tide, push back the tide. Close your eyes, close them tight, close the borders, close your eyes, close your eyes.
I'd always known which direction my life would take. My father was a fisherman. His father was a fisherman, and all the fathers before him. A long line cast out by the sea of time, and each inch of it a line that belongs to me. We've never travelled far, though. Out there, that sea out there, as far as the eye can see, it's always been ours. Not like a God-given right, it's just ours. Our patch. The sea. She gets right into you. Like an ever-changing puzzle, she is. No two waves are ever the same. Each one a challenge. Each one with its own character. Each wave is your teacher, my dad used to say. Every secret the sea has to offer will come in on a wave. Every single child in our family has spent long summers jumping off that harbour wall. Even when it's full of giant jellyfish, ready to wrap the deadly stings around your legs. And if you were too scared, Dad would push you in. First lesson, learn to swim away from those massive jellyfish and the perfume of the sea. It seeps into you. I went on holiday once, inland. I nearly went mad searching for that sea scent. Every lesson I learnt at my father's side, pulling up the pots. I'm the end of the line though. None of mine are the slight bit interested in the sea. They've upped and left, one by one. Preferring university and brick buildings to the university of the sea. My kids don't see the point. They see me going out earlier and earlier every morning, and the nets and the pots are empty. I'm the end of the long line. The kids say they're pushed out. But I don't know. I'm not giving up hope that something will pull them back. I've thought on many a morning, that's it. That's the last time I'm going out. I'm packing it in. But then there's the tourists, you see. No crabs, no pretty harbour to watch the sunset. That means no cappuccino and candy floss. No tourists. Could mean the death of around here. So I keep going. It's an addiction, though. I get my buzz from going out and finding those pots. Adrenaline kicks in when I drop anchor. Fighting the waves, pull up the line, fight the waves. The boat is spinning in the wave and it's exciting. The defeat when the pot is empty. This morning, though. This morning I felt something different. Even the light was different. The sea sounded different. I'd left the gulls at the harbour. Usually it means there's a storm coming when the gulls are in, but the sea was calm. Sky was clear, but a strange colour. And nothing in my long line of lessons and experience could tell me what the day was bringing. There are usually signs. Signs that you ignore at your own peril. But I had to go and see, check the pots. Today might be the day that the crabs have decided to come back and fill my pots. So I travel out, and the sea was like a mill pond. Still, unusually compliant, and I ignore the hackles rising on my neck. I get to the line. I give it a cheeky pull before I drop the anchor. It's taut, and a taut line only means one thing, a feast tonight, and I'm thinking, yes. Just what you need after such famine, a sea feast. Then the wind gets up, picks up, the sky darkens, and a fret descends from nowhere. More than a mist, a fret is not a good sign. I attach the line and I start pulling it in. And I'm thinking, it's okay. You know this sea blindfold. Sea is worse than a teenager. All calm 1 minute, and then bang, out of nowhere comes a dark mood, and I'm thinking, I could see my own breath. The sea's playing with me. She wants me to take a sea dog's tail to the shore, so I ignore her and I keep reeling it in. The line jars, something stuck. So I stop and start again, and up the pot pops. My heart just stopped. I'm seeing things in this fret. I start dropping the pot down. Maybe I am seeing things. You see, this is still an unknown world, still full of mystery, and the sea, she plays tricks with you. I don't even have a nip of rum. I gave that tradition up years ago. I open my flask and I take a sip of tea instead. But my heart is getting colder by the minute. My breath quickening. This was not a day like others. This was not. I walk along the deck. And I consider my own sanity. I mean, you hear of old fishermen losing their minds out here. Some can't deal with the endless hours battling water alone. Right. I'm going to pull this line up, and when I do, it's going to be full of crabs, writhing. Their pincers wanting a piece of me. One deep breath, then another. And there it is. Hands. Black and blue of death. Hands. Reaching out as if they were saying, please God, save me. And then the face. The face of a boy. Eyes closed. A sleeping child. A dead child. This was someone's dead child. So I take it out of the pots. I threw the crabs back in, I wrap him in my coat, and I sing to him. Cws, cws, fy mlentyn tlws, a wel fwyn sy'n siglo'r cws. Cws, cws, fy mlentyn tlws, daddy sy'n siglo'r cws. When I looked up, the fret had disappeared. And that's when I heard them calling. Boatloads of people calling for help. This was the day my life changed. When instead of fish and crabs, I started fishing people's stories out of the sea.
Do you remember me? Do you remember me from school? I always had my hair up in ribbons. Big silk red ribbons. There were only 2 of us at school with my colour. You must remember. Lived all my life in Cardiff, as far back as I can remember anyway. 70 years old today. I know, I look young for my age. Do you remember me? Do you remember me from school? Remember when Mr. Roberts went all livid that day? Because I made you all laugh. Because I put chalk on the radiator he loved to lean against and made the arse of his trousers all stripy with chalk. Mr. Roberts used to love picking on me, calling me the N-word, hauling me up in front of class by my bunches, and asking me questions about deepest, darkest Africa. You lot used to love egging me on to get my own back on him. You must remember. You have to. I was always really tidy and clean. My mum said I had to be twice as bright as the rest. Were you one of the children that used to try and rub the black off my hands? Or one of the children that used to giggle at the collection boxes for the starving children of Africa? Did you ever come round to my house and have some of my mum's delicious patties? Come on, one of you must remember. I always had my hair up in ribbons, big silk red ribbons. There were only 2 of us at school with my colour. You must remember. My children went to school with your children. They were all christened in the same baptism font. I support Wales in the Six Nations. I support British wrestlers. I can't quite say the same about the cricket, though. No fool is ever going to tell me that the West Indies doesn't turn out the best cricket. Do you remember me? Do you remember me from school? I always had my hair up in ribbons. Big silk red ribbons. I never applied for a passport because I never went anywhere. I was watching the wrestling, actually, when I heard the bang, bang, bang on the door. I hid behind my new sofa, all covered in its plastic, still and quiet. I thought I was being robbed, you see. Everyone was out but me. I shrink to 1/10 of my size. Scared out of my mind racing with all kinds of thoughts. I'd seen this disease spreading, as bad as the old days. People had got ruder lately. People had stopped smiling and saying hello when you passed them on the street. Neighbours had stopped coming round to borrow sugar. Roy, next door, actually said no to a plate of food I'd sent to him. The plate of rice and peas and curry goat, which he loved, came back uneaten, the rice still steaming under the foil. I went straight round there myself and knocked on the door to see if he was all right. And even though I could hear his telly through the door, he refused to answer to me. Are you sure you don't remember me? Things are actually worse than before. My mind races and I'm on the bus with that girl screaming in my face, telling me to get the fuck back home. Not a single person on the bus intervened. Not even the driver. Maybe I've just got a rosy view of before. I'm sure someone would have stood up for me back then. Bang, bang, bang on the door. My world is shrinking in these moments. Why don't they just get on with it and put shit through the letterbox? Hopefully it won't be petrol. I've got a fire extinguisher just in case. I'll be all right. Every day has a just in case, a lesson learned from those bad old days. You just have to carry on and hope that things will calm down and someone will find a cure for this disease. Get the fuck back home, she said. Get the fuck back home. That vote, when people voted, it unleashed girls like that on a bus. This is my home, I whispered to her. I don't even remember anywhere else. I was 3 when I sailed here with my ma, 3 years old. I don't even know anywhere else. All my memories are here. Bang, bang, bang on the door, and then crack. And what looked like robots charged through my front door. And when I stood up to face them, they charged at me and pinned me to the floor. I passed out and woke up in the back of a van. I was terrified. What's going on is all I could say. I'm told I'm under arrest. I'm an illegal immigrant. I'm British is all I can say. When they strip search me and give me a paper suit to wear, I'm taken to a centre. They laugh when all I can say is I'm British. I'm put in a cell with an Arabic woman who just stares silently. I want to go home. Huh. You'll be home soon, love, they say. Finally, a solicitor comes to see me. He says I've been caught up in the hostile environment. No evidence to suggest I'm British. Can't I go home to my children? No documents, no proof, he says. I've paid in, I said. Paid in every day of my working life. Doesn't matter, he says. No documents, no proof. Unless I can find people who remember me at school, there's no proof I just didn't come in here on one of those boats. Can't I just go home to my children and die in peace? You're a flight risk, he says. You will be on a plane within 7 days. You will be on a plane within 7 days. You will be on a plane within 7 days.
The world is now divided between those that can fly unhindered and those whose wings are clipped because they are undocumented. And my hands are tied behind my back. What can I do? All I can do is see the children living in the shadows, sleeping in ditches, muddied hand playing in their sleep. See the camps being built by feet of human kindness and ingenuity, and see those camps being torn down, hope razed to the ground. How did we get here? Life is hard for many, and nobody wants to share. 65 million people live in the United Kingdom. That's one person whose life is mirroring yours somewhere. You have a mirror somewhere. Someone just like you. Over 65 million refugees currently seeking a place to call home. I come here every day, taking the air. It's impossible to imagine the sea out there being anything other than pleasant. The best story I heard was down at the reggae record shop in town. Haile Selassie had once exercised his lions on that beach, the South Beach. Oh, he was on the run from the Italians, and a pastor from Swansea invited him up here for a bit of peace. I wonder if he found it, him and his lions. Of course, some people say no, that it was leopards, but he had lions, didn't he? That coast out there has ever been disputed territory is difficult to picture. Here, with all the crab pots and sweet shops and fudge makers carving small harbours out of sugar, where the seagulls tiptoe. They're the only 4 for miles around. But on that day, when the big, crashing wave came rushing into our shore, what can I say? That wasn't of here. Oh, no, it wasn't here. It was like then. Suddenly I was a little boy and it was happening all over again. My only witness was that monument, that statue up there. There was an odd feeling about it. Something caught my eye. I thought, flying fish. I stood up and looked at the island was singing in the wind. Ooh. sometimes you forget where you are up here. I thought maybe I was seeing things. I saw what looked like 2 swans with their necks wrapped around each other in an embrace. And more silhouettes out at sea. Dolphins, I thought. No, it's unusual this time of the year. And then, it looked like the sea was sprouting poppies. These bright red explosions diving in the waves. And it became a whirling, seething mass. But there was no sound. Only the island singing in the wind. And then, the sea was boiling with limbs. And still no sound. And the waves were pulling some of them to the shore while others was spinning round in an eddy. And I was frozen. And then I hear the cries for the first time. And I snap to. I phone the Coast Guard and I run as fast as I could to the shore.
If one day it is decreed who you love is not acceptable and your love makes you a pariah, I am here, carried by the Khamsin wind, the wind that rages through the desert for 50 days and nights, searching for the end of the horizon. The horizon is like tomorrow. You never reach it. Tomorrow never comes. No matter where you are, the horizon is always over there. I'm going to build a ship. I've carried the plans in my head since I was a boy. I first saw the ship I want to build in a bottle. It was for sale at the market. And I would go to the market day after day and draw this ship in a bottle. The ship has tall sails, attached to 3 mighty masts. There are the finest made ladders, which take you all the way up to the central crow's nest. It was there, in my mind's eye, where I began to dream of travel. Using my drawings, I began to build that mighty ship. In miniature, of course. I spent days and weeks making it, sanding down and polishing for hours the bits of wood, steaming them into the right shape. I can't go back. I've invested too much, you see. It's all gone. Everything. I sold the last parcel of land to get out. There's no horizon back there. Back there is not a place for a young man to build his dreams. The only thing left in my way is the sea. For 50 days and nights, I have tried to forget my backstory. I, traveling the back way. The first time I left, it was because of the political situation. The shortages, the curfews, the empty ballot boxes. Because everyone was afraid to vote. Government gangs, searching for any sign of dissent. I was forced to sell the last parcel of land to join my brother. Okay. I'm exaggerating. I wasn't forced exactly. It was the endless Facebook and Instagram images flooding my phone every day. The semesters, we call them. All the people that have made it to the other side. Showing off day in, day out their great lives. All the freedom they have. All the food and the clothes. Studying for MAs in business studies. Freedom. They have so much freedom. And money. And possibilities. And parties. Every night. Most of all, the possibility of putting my knowledge to good use. To build something. There's no opportunity to do that at home. It's suffocating.
I've been trying to remember you, Island. Small place. Remember the smells, the color of the sea, the noises. And there's nothing. Nothing. I was a little girl when I left you. And now they want to cast me off, throw me out. There will be nobody waiting on the other side. Nobody. No one to throw me a line and pull me in. They are gone. Once we gone from there, we never look back. They say that my roots belong with you. But my roots never settled there. Never. My tree has grown on this shore. I can feel its roots twisting and turning underneath this earth. You are a place of fable. Stories told over a dish my mother cooked that would make her cry. Salt fish. Her sea salt tears running down her beautiful face and dropping into the pot, seasoning the ackee. She'd tell me of the sky, God's full fishing net up there, catching so many stars. In the Blue Mountains, you can reach up and pick your own star. They are so close. She had a special lamp. She brought it with us on the boat. She said it was one of the stars she had captured and kept inside this lamp, and I believed her. I think she told me this story to stop me crying for my pops, my daddy. Those times were rare, though. She was always tired, working hard, long hours in a starched nurse's uniform. I just wish she could tell me what to do. That is not my home. That is not my island. This is my island.
remember me? Do you remember me from school? I always had my hair up in ribbons. Big silk red ribbons. There were only 2 of us at school with my colour. You must remember. One night, me and my friends were sat around playing dice, bored. An agent came, bought us some drinks and seduced us with his talk. Hey, Jamil, psst, come here. You want a beer, son? I don't drink, I say. Him say, there is lots of work. And I have the connections. I hook you up, Jamil. You are one of the G's. You can make it back way. I have you being a semester boy in no time at all. Back way is paved with dollars, son. And cars. Maybe Lamborghini. And fine threads in Milan. Good work I get you. Maybe stevedore in Genoa. And women. Oh my days, everywhere. Hey, look at my cousin in his Facebook picture. Said he could get us out. Over the border. It's a magnetic pull and I can't resist it. Once you're on that road, you have one goal. Get to the other side. The other side is Europe. You have that one goal. You must stay motivated, always thinking forward, ahead. The agent was a good man. He got us there fast to Senegal. Senegal was so different. Music in the marketplaces, everywhere. People busy. People walking with purpose. Most of us had never left our town. Never mind the country. We wandered the streets just absorbing a new world. The agent told us of a safe place to sleep. And that night, we partied. It was no more than a cattle shed, but we partied. The air is different in a free country. The next morning, as if a veil had been lifted, we began to see the world for what it truly was. I woke up, caught in the teeth of a terrifying monster. Blows upon blows were biting into my skin. The militia had found us. It's $200. The true price of a human being. That's the price they placed on my head. I paid more than that for my education. I am not a stupid man. The militia had handed us over to a gang. They got $200 per head. We were sent back home. When I walked into my mother's house, I knew I had outgrown it. Second time out, on a shark-infested back way, I decided to pay for a more expensive agent. he got a truck filled with young men. All of us with the same look on our faces. Each of us an able, capable human being. You could almost hear everyone's thoughts. What are we going to do when we get to Libya? What are we going to do when we get to Italy? Making connections in our heads. Drawing the route of the journey in our heads. As soon as we crossed the border, the mood changed. We should be stopping here to stock up. The agent keeps driving. We were going too quick. We get to the desert too fast. And we had no protection from the sands. It wasn't long we were one with the sands. Dry mouth. Eyes staring out. The truck stopped and armed men came up. Told us to get out to the well and drink. There was another group of people at the well. Our agent joins the armed men and they start to haggle. Our agent wins the deal and he agrees to buy the other group of people. At gunpoint, they are forced onto our truck. In silence, we all knew we were now human cargo. Nobody ever talked about this part of the journey. It wasn't being stuffed in a truck like a pile of vegetables. Human beings stacked on top of each other. It wasn't that. It wasn't the next 6 days without food or water in the desert. Mouth so dry, lips cracked. It was that nobody ever told you about this bit. All those semesters, they post pictures of free life with cars and apartments and deals being made. Know this. Don't talk about. I've got to escape. I ran until there's no more air in my lungs. When the smugglers found me, they took everything I had. There was no more bargaining. My luck had run out. It wasn't the beatings. It wasn't the being told I would be kept here until my mother wired a ransom. It wasn't the pits they held me in. No. It was the moment I woke up, upside down, seeing the world upside down, bound and gagged. When I understood, I was now an item for sale at the market. All those feet kicking up the dust in my face, they were bargaining and outdoing each other for who could pay the fairest price. For me. It was that moment I realized I had not paid for safe passage. I sold myself to slavery. The man I gave all my cash to, all my family's cash, he took my documents, he took my name, he took my history, he took my rights as a human, he took my future, he took my dreams, he took my present. He who was all smiles, calling me brother. I am not naive. I have an education, fully qualified engineer. now, I am livestock for sale at the Libyan market. I've got to escape. We were in a truck. Rumors were rife about where we'll be sent to. Some say a prison in the desert where we'll just be left to die. Others say we're going to be a chain gang rebuilding roads. Some say an olive farm. I've got to escape. I am an engineer. I have paid to get out to Europe to start my life. I have got a tall ship to build. It was an awakening. I am no longer scared. I shuffle to the edge of the track. Even if they shoot me, I am not going to take this. I am not. I returned to my mother. Made the journey in small steps. Each time getting work. Saving a little to get me closer to home. I learned to travel alone. Possibility returned to our lives. People's lives were changing. I plowed our small piece of land. Got my fingers into the dirt and imagined the roots I would plant there. I bent the ship one night. A sacrifice. As I looked into the flames, I saw my dream spiral upwards to the sky. I tried to let go of that future. Stay home. Rebuild a new one. But even though I'd watched each mast of my ship go up in flames, that road was calling me. I stayed home a few months. Grew some crops. Long enough to gather some seeds. I stole away into the night. Taking the seeds with me. This time, I would not be at anyone's mercy. I was on top of this game, this time with a backup plan. It was the 4th time now. And I would be in charge of my own fate. In the bazaars, I collected days' work. Got fed. Found a good place to sleep. Every night, I brushed the sand from around me like a turtle about to lay eggs under the shelter of an upturned boat. I got to know people at the market, listened out for those who might be traffickers. It was whilst I was serving mint tea one afternoon that I overheard a group of men talking about needing pilots for the next shipment. I found the agents organizing the boats. I took my chance. I poured their tea, bowed deeply, and offered my assistance. They thought me strange and laughed at me. I struck a deal. I would take my voyage across with a boatload of women. I had to make sure they got to the other side and would get in contact with the gangs over there. I didn't think it through. Not that bit. I didn't ask enough questions. If I was successful, I would have no debts to clear, my passage paid. It was a simple transaction. My hands were clean. It was early morning. The Mediterranean looked beautiful. My boatload of women sat quietly, looking out together at sea. Some were praying. All were scared. Made jokes. Did stupid dancing to make them laugh. I tried my best to reassure them. I went around checking. They all had their Italian contact numbers written down and wrapped up in cling film. I drilled them with their instructions. When you get to the other side, asylum. Claim asylum. On the run from the government. Have your backstory sorted out. No papers. All passports handed over. You must wait until you reach the camp. Then make the asylum. First opportunity, call this number. There, a message will be waiting for you to call. Then wait until they collect you. There is a roundabout you must wait. Tell no one. I helped them all aboard. Someone showed me how to start the engine. It was then that it hit me. What it was, I was really doing. This wasn't the ship I imagined. But I would finally get to be the captain of the ship. Well, a dinghy at least. Next, I was given a mobile. Check when the signal changes to an Italian company. Then ring the Italian Coast Guards. They will come fast. I sat at the helm of the boat. In charge. Briefly. I looked around the boat. The faces of the women. They had not yet grasped what life was going to be like on the other side. I wanted to tell them the truth. I wanted to say, now that you are out at sea, no one can command us, buy or sell us. I wanted to tell them, when they reach the other side, run. Give different names, hide. Don't make that call. It was there. That open water. For a few hours, we were free. I didn't though. I kept my mouth shut. I wish I hadn't. May God forgive me. I was fully in this game. It was when the first big wave rocked us nearly upside down. I knew then I had bitten off more than I could chew. I worked hard to keep us going. The engine was flooding. I held up my phone to get signal. Nothing yet. Still showing Libyan sail. The women were being sick, giving themselves over to the waves, rocking us this way and that. The squall came spinning out of nowhere. Another giant wave. The wave became our sky. A hand came out of the wall of water and took some women. A trail of orange life jackets floated on the water. Panic and screaming. I'm shouting to them, hold on, hold on. Oh Allah, oh Jesus, help, help. Everyone was crying. I checked the phone. And there it was. Italian signal. I called the number. Coast Guard, please. Coast Guard, please. I'm sending you location. We were slapped like fish onto the deck of the Coast Guard boat. Checked and counted by people in white suits with masks. It was like we were plagued. arrested. It was obvious. One man, a boatload of women. This happened often. The procedure would be the same. I would be processed on the boat and transferred to Libyan Coast Guards. Do you wish to claim asylum? They said. No, I said. I want to work. I want to work. I want to build ships. And now, I am here. One last attempt. The ship I am going to build. It dreams of tall masts, of felled oak. Giant silk cotton trees grow out of tiny seeds. My ship will sail.
Did you know that the first ever oranges to arrive in Wales came in here? Through the harbour, up the old Tudor Street. Oranges from Spain. I keep it quiet nowadays. I was like one of those oranges. Packed on a boat, sent somewhere else, and then, after a lifetime, I washed up here. Worked hard, became mayor. I wondered if they knew, the people around here. Wondered if they voted for me, if they knew. Look at these headlines. These newspapers. Vermin. Traitors. Cockroaches. Monsters. You was no better in my day. The newspaper said all the same things. They talked of us as if we were a contagion. As if we were spies. I was one of the last to board the Havana. My mother didn't want to let me go. I bothered her for weeks. All my friends at school, this was the only topic of their conversation. How they would board a big ship that would take them to a place where there would be no more fighting, where they could speak our language, the Basque language, without the Franco militia giving them a good hiding. All the children who are leaving form their own cool gang on the schoolyard. Oh, I wanted desperately to be in that gang. Every day I went home and begged Mama to let me go. Do you think this is some big adventure they are going on, Santiago? No, no. They will be lucky to make it. Most likely the dictator will sink the ship before it leaves the port. I just cried and kept up my campaign. In the end, no one actually won the arguments because my mother's hand was forced by events. It was when the men started to disappear. But one day, Mama came back from the bakery. The queue was awash with rumours that the boys would be next. Mama changed her mind. Now it was her mission to get me on the boat. She said I couldn't take anything. Oh, I was sad. And this sad feeling grew, and suddenly I didn't want to go. I remember the morning I left. Streets were deserted. Only the crack of sniper fire made us aware that other human beings existed at all. My mother walked on, and me hidden inside her coat. She walked with her head down and a white handkerchief waving in front of her like a tall ship's sail. My mama told lie after lie at the checkpoints, said I was very ill and needed medicine. Or I'd never heard mama tell a lie before. I just kept silent as a mouse, terrified, but wanting to be a brave boy at the same time. You see, there were the firing squads. It was then that I grew up and thought this world was crazy. A line of men stood in front of one man, shooting him dead, just like that. Seeing him fall like a peach from a tree. My mama, she said for me to close my eyes the rest of the journey to the port. She waved as I climbed the gangplank. Oh, I'd never seen or heard so many children before. The boat was too full. As I got aboard, I was pushed into the groundswell of the crowd and I lost sight of Mama. I fought my way through, pushed under people's legs, pushing people out of the way, and I got to the handrail just in time to catch sight of my mother on the quay, waving her scarf madly. She saw my eyes, and I cried, till a bigger boy came behind me and clipped me round the ear and said for me to be brave. I was upsetting the younger ones. You got to show courage. This is the Basque way. As the ship pulled further from the shore, we heard the aircraft. We saw the bombs falling like black eggs, blowing up the city. The bull had risen and was trampling everything we ever knew into dirt. Horses gored, buildings blown up, everything we ever knew destroyed. The flames consuming everything in their path. I saw our world fragment. The streets, the parks, the schools, our homes, our parents, our past, all began to disintegrate. Black smoke and the sunset made for a strange horizon. None of us knew if our parents were alive or dead. The sky turned red, as if it was bleeding. Everything I had ever known was destroyed before my very eyes. Franco had waited until the last moments before he devoured his own horse. A group of boys recognized me from at school and said I could sleep with them in one of the lifeboats, the only place left to sleep in that ship under canvas. We didn't sleep, though. This wasn't a big adventure. Franco? Guernica? Some boys from another lifeboat started to sing an old folk song. And suddenly we were allowed to be just children. Cry. We said our prayers and eventually fell asleep. We awoke up to the new country, a clear horizon, This wasn't some terrible dream, this was true. There were days in that first camp that were full of joy. We were on our best behavior, visited by lords and ladies. But after a few freezing cold weeks, we were taken to another camp in Wales. Whoa! I thought I'd arrived at the ends of the earth. Oh, we slept on rough sacks in wooden barracks. We were wild, not enough to eat. No one had thought that us children from a war zone would need a school, would need order. Some newspapers said we'd be trouble, but others said we'd do all right. With our blonde hair, blue eyes, freckly skin, that we'd fit in. When we got here, they sent reporters to write stories about us. They called us the Bad Basque Boys. Oh, which when we found out, we did our best to live up to. But it got to a head one night, when the bigger boys took it too far and ran through the town, smashing windows. Oh, we were sure we'd be sent back home on a big ship to be killed by the black eggs. The newspapers and the politicians said we were a menace to the British public. They warned against us having diphtheria and typhoid. They didn't want us here in the first place. No. That ship had been paid for by the churches and the trade unions. The government only agreed we come here if there was no expense to the public purse. And it was then that a miracle started to happen. The local people started to see us as children for the first time, bringing us food, sweets, sharing what they could. They helped us organize concerts to raise money. Instead of believing everything they said in the newspapers, the local peoples all organized. Miners raised money to pay for school teachers. And gradually this place became home. We formed our own singing troupe to raise money. Every night we were in demand to sing in miners' clubs and churches. Nothing much changes, does it? See those headlines? Vermin, cockroaches. They talk about these kids like they're not children, but a threat. A child is not a threat, surely. A child is not a traitor, a spy. These children will grow up, and those lucky enough to make it here will want to grow into an old man like me. They'll want a life like I've had, to arrive, to be safe, to fit in, to work, to raise a family. The tide is turning over more and more children to the shore. And people would like to help. But the Westminster government, the local councils, can't help. And local councils say they want to help. Meanwhile, there are a few thousand children on the border and nobody's helping. 1 million people have said that they'd open up their homes. The government just ignores them. What will become of these stranded children? What sort of adults will they become?
Lived all my life here. As far back as I can remember. I never applied for a passport because I never went anywhere. once. That was enough for me. I stood outside Buckingham Palace like a tourist and imagined the Queen peering through her net curtains looking down on me. Maybe things are actually worse. I've been caught up and cast out by this net that descended, called the hostile environment. No evidence to suggest I'm British. I caved in every day of my working life. Doesn't matter. No documents, no proof. I'm 70. I live on a quiet street. Empire of the backs, the blood, sweat and tears of a people. Then after hundreds of years, say those people are part of your empire. Educate them to believe that you are better. Say they belong. They are citizens. Then ask them to fight for you in 2 world wars. Then ask them to help rebuild your nation. Invite them over by the boatload. Then you decide they are not citizens. When they get to pension age, you refuse them the right to travel or to live where they've lived all their lives. You depart them and criminalize their kids. And then, because the rules change all over, you suddenly realize that you need to ask their grandkids to come and work in your hospitals again. Because now, you don't like the European people that are working in your hospitals, and you're going to deport them too. I don't remember. Like a criminal. Not even so much as stole a penny shrimp from the shop. I sat there, thinking I would never see my children again. I became less well-behaved. That small, naughty girl, standing up to a bullying teacher, suddenly rose up out from inside of me. I started stamping my feet, making as much noise as I could. The guards told me to be quiet, but I kept stamping my feet. It was then that other people on the plane started to notice, turning around to see what all the fuss was about. An old woman, age 70, being treated. They started listening. They told me, stamp their feet louder. The pilot came over the speaker, asking for people to be calm. Women from the front of the plane came and gently pushed those guards back. Going on. People were filming on their phones. One man shouted, "He's going live on Facebook!" An old man about my age came up the aisle and said, "I know you. I remember you. I remember your red ribbons and your pure cheek. Full of spirit you were, a tempest, causing havoc on the streets. Someone call my solicitor, I say. It is such a small world. It is such a tiny, minuscule thing. Our world."
Did you know that the first ever oranges to arrive in Wales came in here? Up the old Tudor Street. Oranges from Spain. I'm was one of those oranges, packed on a boat, washed up here. I became one of the boys, eventually becoming mayor. I love it here. I really do.
It's you, it's really you.
Wrong change a bit. Come, come. This is how it happened. A bolt out of the shimmering, whispering blue, one tide after another. All the lessons you wish you'd learned all come at once. Life invades the ordinary. You set sail, and all you want is this harbor's embrace. To find your people, find your safe place. You are home now, son. You're home now, child. You are home now, sister. This is your shore, your shore, your shore. Your shore.
British Council Wales. Over to you, Rebecca.
Good evening, everybody. A very warm Tramshed National Theatre Wales welcome to everybody here in Grangetown at Tramshed Tech, but also to the groups of people who are watching online, both in Wales, in the UK, and internationally. We've got particularly large groups watching at the IETM conference in Llandudno, so a very special welcome to them. And also in Dorset, a very, very special welcome to all of you at the B-Side Festival. You have been watching this evening the very latest, brand new National Theatre Wales production, written by poet and playwright Louise Walwyn, who's here with us this evening, and directed by Cully Thiarai. The film version that you just saw was actually directed by artist Shanaz Gulzar, and it's only one possible journey through the production, which is on in Tenby at the moment. The audience are taken around the streets and around the coast of Tenby, this beautiful seaside town, and depending on which group as an audience member you end up in, that instructs which journey you get. So as you will have seen, the production examines the global theme of mass migration and displacement, and it asks what it is to leave your home with the uncertainty of ever finding another one. And I think that's the theme that we are going to be most concentrating on this evening, really important moment in history. And I would ask for all of you in the room and watching online, if you do tweet, please do use the hashtag #StandWithRefugees. So this production was made possible by the Welsh Government's Year of the Sea, and also by the British Council and National Theatre Wales, in very close and very important partnership with the Tramshed Tech here in Cardiff. Through this partnership, it has been made available to watch online free. However, if you're just joining us and you've missed it, that wasn't your only chance. It will be uploaded onto Facebook in an hour or so after this discussion. Also, importantly, as I said, you only watched one version of the show, so over the coming days and weeks, you'll also be able to watch the other stories that will also become available. So, enough from me, and without further ado, I would like to introduce the panel. Firstly, Louise Walwyn, a poet and playwright and writer for The Tide Whisperer. Thank you very much. Yes, indeed. Malu Ansaldo, who is the executive producer at National Theatre Wales and producer for this show. And Salah Razoul, who works here in Cardiff at the Wales Refugee Council. She is project leader for a project called Move On. So the way in which this is going to work, if that's all right, is that, sorry, I just remembered the microphone. The way in which this is going to work is that I'll ask a couple of questions, but very quickly we're going to hand over to you in the room and online. So please do start thinking of your questions. We don't want any embarrassing silences while we shuffle papers or iPads or whatever. So first up, Malu, can I ask you, can you tell us about how the show came about, how it was created, and perhaps a bit about how it fits in with National Theatre Wales' mission and remit?
Yeah. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone watching wherever you are, and hello to my parents watching from Argentina as well. Sorry, I just had to do that. Definitely, for all of you here, you will know of National Theatre Wales work, and all of you who don't, NTW is a national theatre without an actual building. So all our shows are site-specific, and we produce them all across Wales. The nation of Wales is our stage, so obviously when we were thinking about creating a show to talk about migration and displaced communities, we thought about where we could place that if we're going to try to actually really challenge all of us to think about it happening here with us, to us. We needed a coastal town where people could arrive to. And as in one of our stories, Tenby and Pembrokeshire were places where years ago, the first oranges actually arrived in Tenby. That is a true story. So we thought, well, you know, we have that story there. There has been sanctuary given here in Wales throughout the years. So we were trying to find a place that would be a good scenario for this story to take place, and for all of us to be able to imagine what would it be if it would happen here to us. Where would people arrive to, in which coast? How can we generate a good journey for audiences to be able to walk, to be able to feel the ocean, to feel the wind, to feel the water, and to be able to imagine this happening to them as well. So as Rebecca was saying at the beginning, this film that we've just seen is just one of the versions of the show. The beautiful, beautiful place that Luis has written tells 7 different stories. So we had a palette of different stories to share. All our audiences for this show, for the Tide Whisperer, they arrive in one specific point of Tenby, but from there we take them all in different journeys. There are 7 different journeys that you can take, and throughout those journeys you encounter different characters and you hear different stories. They don't all get to hear the same stories. They don't all get to see the same things, but that is what actually happens to everyone in life. We all take different journeys. All the different things that we see and the experiences that we encounter are very, very different. So we just thought, well, this is a great way of doing this, and Tenby was the perfect landscape for this play.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Louise, can I come to you next, if that's all right? So you're a poet and a playwright, and we saw from what we just watched a very poetic, dramatic, and much more piece of work. Can you just tell us about the original brief and how it all got started?
How it all got started was perhaps the day I was born, because I was born a child of the States. My mother came from another country and dropped me off in England. And then I spent my entire childhood in care. And I think we lost count, but about 13 different homes. So in those homes were children of the Windrush generation. So that's where that came from. And then as an activist, when I left care, I became an activist. And one of the causes that I found that really spoke to me and what I could find solidarity with was refugees and asylum seekers. And then throughout my career as a poet, I am lucky enough to work with thousands of people. A lot of them are refugees, asylum seekers, people on the streets or whatever, a lot of displaced people. And then through my sort of being raised by the world, kind of the way I've been raised, because I've been raised entirely by strangers. Some of those strangers took me in Greece, in the island of Kos, 20 years ago, and welcomed me to the table and were really, really kind to me. So then I went, when it all kicked off in 2015, I rang up my mate George Fruzakis in Kos. I hope you're listening, George. And Georgie Osifidis and all of Kos Solidarity. And yeah, I rang him up and went and became a volunteer with Kos Solidarity and met loads of people off the boats, gave them water, made them laugh, gave them a blanket, all of that sort of thing. I kind of went into workshop mode. And then on the Christmas visit, on the way back to Kos to volunteer, to relieve the local volunteers, because they've been working 24/7, I met with Cully and started to talk to Cully about, I wanted to bring the crisis here. Because it's not here. Our borders are in Calais. They're not on this island. So I wanted to make a piece of work that really did that really put you in the shoes of those people, those 99% brilliant people that I met. Because there's always one each, isn't there? And so throughout my entire life, if you know what I mean, I've been listening to other people that have been displaced and somehow I filtered it into this, and at first it was going to be called The Causeway. And I sent 2 sentences to Cully. I said, it's called The Causeway, and I want to find a tidal island in Wales, and I want the audience to get their feet wet, because, you know, that's basically what I think we all need to be doing, and we all need to be helping. Does that answer your question, Rebecca?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Salah, you work directly here in Cardiff with refugees on a project called Move On. I mean, I realise it's very difficult, but could you tell us a little bit about that project and perhaps paint a picture for us of the current situation for refugees and asylum seekers arriving in Cardiff?
Good evening, everyone. Basically, I would like to encourage everybody to be engaged with us tonight. And this is a very hot topic, obviously, around Europe at the moment. If I talk about my project, I'm managing a project called Move On Project, which is funded by Welsh Assembly. We have 4 caseworkers and 1 triage in 4 dispersal area in Wales, Swansea, Cardiff, Newport, and a part-time caseworker in Wrexham. We mainly deal with the newly granted refugees and those who get some sort of status, can be humanitarian protection or discretionary leave to remain. We help those individuals from the transition while supported by asylum, a system called NAS, National Asylum Support Service. Once you get refugee status, you have only 28 days to leave NAS accommodation or NAS support. So individual in that situation, they need a lot of helps. So our project exists basically helping with in terms of housing, benefit, employment, integration, education, in terms of health. My main basically objective is how to make individual refugees integrate into Welsh society. This is simple, but obviously the refugee process is quite long process. That is once you get refugee status. But if we talk about asylum process, is complicated. I would like to start from the finishing point. We all watched the film tonight. It says we welcome everyone comes here. But for me, I think the struggle starts from there. The asylum system is so complicated here in the UK. Once you arrive in the country, no matter where you come from, first does not allow you to work. This is basically strangling you, no matter how much skill you have, how capable you are, how fit you are, how young you are, the system blocks you straight away. Then you are going through the asylum process, which can be very complicated. I would like people to ask later on. I can expand on it. I think it's enough for me.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Salah and I were talking before the show because we were talking about how important it is, obviously, when people have been on that terrible journey to get here, that they are welcomed warmly, and I think that is something that we can all be involved in. Malu, why did you want to make this show? We're in the midst of the largest humanitarian crisis since the Second World War, and we all troop off. I went on Wednesday to one of the most beautiful and picturesque seaside towns in the UK, I would say. What was it about that juxtaposition of that terrible crisis and this beautiful place that made National Theatre Wales want to bring those two things together?
Well, I think we, as a national theatre, but also as people, we can't not look this in the eye and do something about it. And we can all do something from our place, from where we are. We are theatre makers. We're a company that makes shows. So what we could do was make a show about it and try to use our craft and our skills to spread awareness, to open people's eyes, to make people get their feet wet, to get people to empathize with what's happening. With what's happening here, but what's happening everywhere in the world. We are, as you say, this is the biggest crisis we've encountered, but it's not only happening in the borders of the UK, it's not only happening in the borders of Europe, it's happening in all the borders, in all the continents. In our company, we have a lot of people from other countries, including myself, and we have all different journeys, different experiences, and we all really care about it. So I think this is the least that we could have done, you know, giving people a voice, give these stories a platform. And obviously, you know, we couldn't have done it with Luis's help, because you have been working in camps in the front line and you've heard stories firsthand. So even though they might not be verbatim stories, they're all inspired in people, and they're all inspired in several journeys. So I think hopefully, and one of our hopes with this is that it would help people empathize, it would help people take action themselves. Everyone can do something. We're also having collection boxes for everyone who comes to see the show in person in Tembe, and we've been collecting a lot of things that we're going to take as a donation. We've also been working with the International Rescue Committee, and we're having links on all our websites and all our platforms for people who are watching the show online, or people who come to our website to be able to go to their website and see what their causes are. We're hosting this panel discussion here because also we want to give everyone who was working with refugees in Cardiff a platform as well. So I think, you know, some people think sometimes, well, you know, but you guys are doing theater, why don't you use their money to your shows to give it away? You know, we can all do different things, and one of the things that we're doing is giving voice to stories that don't usually have a voice, giving a platform and helping people be more aware, because yes, maybe we're all comfortable in our homes here in the UK, but not everyone is. And it can happen to any of us. Mm-hmm. Everyone who's on the move, all the 65 million refugees who are moving right now, they're people like you and me. Mm-hmm. They're no different to us. And tomorrow it could be us. So we should all be very, very aware of that, and open our hearts and open our minds to the cause. So that's why I think we're doing it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Very passionate and very important answer. I'm going to go over now to the floor and to the online audience for questions, if you have any, rather than ask any myself. So if we have any questions, they may come up on the screen here, or you please do put your hands up in the audience here at Tramshed Tech in Cardiff. Okay.
It's coming.
Hello. Yeah. We were just saying how it's a wonderful opportunity if you can't get to the site-specific space to watch the theatre piece. And we were just saying that it's one experience being here. What is the actual experience if you're there? What have we missed out on?
We'll tell you.
Well, yes. Very early on, I wanted to write you all into the show. So the audience, they provide the scenography, and the way that they're moved around the beaches and up and down steps and on boats and things like that. It's amazing to see them playing their part. So I was on the top of the cliff with Santiago the other night, and I looked down, and there I saw lines of audience. It was amazing, and all these lights, but it looked exactly like us, because what we used to do in Kos was when people, after that we'd, you know, done a bit of repairing after 3 days, and then they'd go off on the boat to Athens, we'd all wave with our phones, you know, and they'd wave back at us, the people on the boat. And I saw things like that happening, and what's wonderful is how the company, the designer, Camilla Clark, and the director, Cully, and Simon over there, they've all listened, and Jacob Goff, the production manager, they've all listened and then boiled it all down and done it. So the audience experience is amazing, because you're viewing it and playing a role for the rest of the audience. It's magnificent.
We've just got a question actually online, which follows on from that, which is how can you get to hear all of the other stories. So we would just encourage you, if you do want to hear the other characters speak, to go online onto the Facebook page, and you can watch the films of the other characters. And also you can continue to comment on it.
It's also Saturday night, people, and there's one more show tomorrow. So I'd get yourselves to Tenby. People of Manchester, it takes 6 hours. I've been taking that journey for 2 years. You know, but come on, get on the train, get there if you can, be there, be part of this fantastic collaboration that's taken place.
Yeah, definitely. Can I just... Yeah.
Yes, yes. Hi, I just wondered what the reaction in Tenby has been to, like, because, you know, you mentioned this earlier, that actually the UK hasn't seen the kind of direct, you know, result in the kind of refugee crisis like in Greece or in Italy or wherever, and whether there has been any resistance locally to kind of single out Tenby?
No, actually, it's been the opposite. We have been working in Tenby for quite a while, so the choir and all the music that you heard, all the singing, those are all local people that have actually created a choir especially for the show. We also have a local producer. We're working with all the local fishermen, all the people from the harbor. We literally take over the entire town. So the place where the show starts, it's called the Valence Pavilion. That's where the council is. So the mayor of Tenby actually has been working next door to us, rehearsing for the last 3 weeks. And it's a she. And she came to see the show on Friday and she loved it. And we go on all of these different journeys, go on all the streets of Tenby, onto the beach, on boats, out in the ocean. We take over the harbor as well. So the people of Tenby have actually been very, very passionate about it. All our stewards, all our ushers, they're all local people, so it's really nice. You go and have a coffee in the morning and you see the usher who's later on going to be working with us on the show. She's the one in the shop serving you the coffee. Everyone is really involved, and yeah, they're loving it. It's great. It's been a great experience.
Also, big shout out to Isigol Greenhill. Some of the school children play a part, because I go and run workshops. That's part of my process. And I went and did some workshops. And the thing, every time you do that as an artist, it always reveals something. And it turned out that, you know, that school shows solidarity to some Syrian families that have arrived in that area. And yeah, it's quite an amazing community. And once you start scratching the surface, and they love that, and the community have told me that they love getting a reflection back of themselves.
We're going to go to the lady with the pink scarf next, if that's all right.
Yeah, I think we haven't seen the mass migration in Wales, but we have seen the rise of the far right, and this is why this was so powerful and so moving. I was incredibly moved by the performance and the writing. Well done, just amazing. I spend a lot of my time in just close to Tenby, Pembroke Dock, and there's a massive rise of UKIP and stuff there. The councillor, he's not UKIP, but he is more or less UKIP. We've seen the same in the valleys. We had 7 UKIP assembly members. It's down to 4 now. So this message is so important. The stuff about the fear with the newspapers and the orange, I just love that imagery. We have seen the fear in Wales, and the communities have been decimated by poverty and stuff, and I just think it's so powerful you're talking about this message. We can challenge it. Cardiff's rather different. I see such a difference in diversity when I leave Cardiff and then go to Pembroke Dock, because basically it's white, but it's full of Irish people, and they seem to have forgotten that migration was important there, you know, and we should carry on welcoming. It's brilliant what we're doing with the Syrian families and all of that. There's a meeting in Cardiff tomorrow. I know this is international, but there's a meeting tomorrow just up the road in Riverside just to challenge all this, and I think what you're doing is just brilliant. Well done. I was very moved.
Thank you very much. Just a quick shout out for that meeting tomorrow. Is it in, do you know where in Riverside? Okay, the Bangladeshi Centre in Mackin Street. So for those of you in the audience watching in Cardiff, 2 o'clock. Brilliant, thank you very much. We've got some questions now from our audience online, I believe. So, Catherine, you... Oh, they're there. Okay, so how can we transfer the sympathy, empathy, understanding, welcoming gestures for specific people who are so desperate that they have put their lives on the line and at risk, fleeing horror.
Yeah. I think engagement is really important for me, and that encouragement for individual to integrate, the long-term integration as well. So that is basically how it can happen. Engage, talk to people, don't be afraid. That beyond stereotyping, don't feel sorry for refugees individual, because we are all human beings. Engage people with your services, engage with refugee sector. That's what we can overcome, basically.
Thank you very much. And another question online, I believe. We're just going to work on that. Just while we're waiting for that, I went to see The Bogus Woman by Kate Adsted 10 years ago in Edinburgh. And as a result of that production, I joined the Refugee Council and became a volunteer for the Refugee Council in Plymouth. So I really believe that, that theatre can make a difference and can make us more activists. So what response has the project had from local Tory MP Stephen Crabb, member for Preseli and Pems, who is also on the committee for exiting the European Union, and who voted against the UK accepting 3,000 Syrian children, refugees? He must be aware of the buzz around this show. I wonder what he's doing. I doubt he's watching tonight, but I really wish that he was. What messages, Louise, would you have for Stephen Crabb?
Stephen, come and see the show. When one of my friends who's from Angola and he's been a refugee a couple of times, when I talked to him about writing this play, he said, just tell him, Lou, that we have hearts and that we feel, we are people. Because the problem is we're all awash with these images that we see, and there's been lots of films and art made, but we're not hearing enough of the human beings behind this story. And I think that, remember your humanity. You are a human being too, Stephen, with a heart. You feel, you have probably encountered loss in your life. So just come and step over all of that, what you've done or not done, and just come and just be part of the journey. You're a human being too.
I would say, Stephen, come to meet me, please, because I have witnessed 3 mass exodus in my life, from my childhood, from the day I was born, without fault, without any guilt from my side, but just because I was born in a land and run by one person, I'm sure all of you heard, which was Saddam Hussein, and denied our right, our language, made our neighbors, we all heard from the film, making your neighbor become an enemy, making your country to hate your country, making the language abandoned, does not allow you. So Stephen, please, anytime. Okay.
Thank you very much. And I think we've got one more question online. Yeah. So from Annie, how to include this in the curriculum in schools? Well, Louise has already mentioned that she's been into schools in Tenby. I know the Wales Refugee Council do some work in schools. Malu, can we come to you?
Yeah, definitely. National Theatre Wales does a lot of work in schools. We've actually been working in Pembrokeshire quite a lot. And now that we're lucky enough to have all of these made into films, we can actually facilitate the films to school and talk about it. We can take Louise to do workshops in schools as well.
Of course, I mean, you know, I'm a broke poet. But yeah, I've completely fallen in love with my experience of working with National Theatre Wales and being in Wales, because there's been a sort of act of reclamation for me. I did my DNA test earlier in the year and I'm 19% Welsh, 66% Irish, bit of Norwegian. So it's lovely. I'm trying to hopefully one day learn the language and things. So I kind of want to move to Wales. Sorry, Manchester, but I think you've lost me.
Great.
Well, you'd be very, very welcome. You are very, very welcome. Any more questions in the room? Thank you, in the front.
I was just wondering, how many people actually experience it when they go to Tenby? I mean, how many people in that audience?
250 people each night.
Not very many.
I wanted 10,000.
We all wanted 10,000, but the thing is, there's a capacity issue also, and health and safety issue, and also we're taking people on separate journeys, and the technical challenges and the logistics around the show make it so that in order for people to actually experience it in an intimate way and be able to be close to the actor and hear the story, but also being taken on a journey, how many people we can fit on boats, all of those things. The tide also is a big challenge for us. We have actually different tide every day, so we're moving the show a tiny bit every day and everything. So one of the reasons for doing all of this filming and generating this new platform for the show was also being able to open up our shows to people who couldn't come and to make it accessible for a wider number of audience members. Yeah, you're welcome.
We're just going to go to Yvonne in the back row.
Hello, I was wondering if there's any ambition to take this anywhere else. So say next summer to tour it around all the seasides.
Well,
not just in Wales.
Should we give the microphone to Rebecca? No. We could totally make it international. It would be amazing and it would be a dream, but it took us 2 years to make this show in one place. So it would require a very high level of investment. It doesn't mean that we wouldn't want to pursue that ambition, definitely. We would have to find the right place and probably redesign the show and all the journeys, but we could use the same stories. Unless we have another massive crisis that would generate new stories, probably.
I'd really love it to go to Kos, you know, because there's such a beautiful... The other night, when I was returning on one of the boats, the sky did exactly what it does in Kos. You know, it just... there was no horizon line. It was just this beautiful purple colour, you know, and the moon came... Yeah, and I was in Kos. I was transported. So yeah, I'd like it to go there.
Great ambition. We've got one more question online, and then we'll take one more from the floor, if that's all right, and one final question. So one more online. Mohammed joining us. How do people become more engaged in this topic? How would you encourage them to organise themselves?
Oh, that's a difficult one. How do people become more engaged? Is that about a refugee themselves?
Yeah, I think about the migration crisis.
Yeah, I think that's a struggle, to be honest. For me, the integration is from both sides, from individual like myself and yourself as well. It's both ways, and I would say because of the system is making it more difficult, integration should start from day one when somebody arrives in the country. But unfortunately, the system is so strict, and the immigration laws, specifically Immigration Act 2014, because of the hostile environment, is making more difficult for individuals to integrate properly. But we shouldn't be pessimistic, we have to be optimistic all the time, and specifically with my project, that's our main aim for longer term integration. A lot of kind people are coming about donation, support providing, but that's only for a short period, even with my project. But the longer aim for integration, that is the engagement coming from individuals. From when you see a refugee becoming your neighbor, when somebody works with you in the sector, I think approach them, talk to them. This kind of encouragement, we need it from all stages of life, I think.
Brilliant, thank you. I would just put a quick plea in as well that even though it is very easy to be pessimistic about changing policy and the law around these things, I think we did take some kind of inspiration from Lord Dubbs and the amendment that he managed to get through. Unfortunately, it was then completely ignored largely, and that is devastating. But there is policy change that we can make. We can lobby. Write to your MPs, please. You know, write to the people who are responsible in all the parties for the refugees who are arriving or trying to arrive in this country. So don't give up on the policy, I think. One more question from the floor.
Yes. I just wondered, I think from what I read in the program, you've worked a little bit with some refugees on this project, but could you maybe tell us a little bit, you know, if you have worked with refugees to be involved in this and what their response has been to the project?
So in terms of my work as an artist, I would say go back 21 years and like all the projects that I've done. I haven't used individual stories because I don't like doing that as a writer. So I've written all of this, and what you're seeing is a kind of reflection of all the people that I met. Like, so Ali, the character Ali, when I was in Kos, I really fell in love with the Bangla and Pakistani men. Because, to be honest with you, even amongst the other refugees, they were on the lowest rung of the ladder. And I can't stand that. So, like, for example, one guy, Irfan, that I met, you know, there was just something about the conversation that we had. And he was saying, you tell me where can I go? So then we had all conversations about which country and stuff. But it's not his story, and there's so it's really hard to sort of pinpoint because I've met so many. I have, you know, sought out to engage myself with refugees and asylum seekers throughout my life, just because, like, you'd be nice. I've been raised entirely by strangers, therefore I know that this country can be kind. Because I've had a lot of people, so I just repay that kindness really, and just make people laugh, and in workshops and get them to write their own stories. Because really, I'd have preferred this if this was written by some of my refugee mates, to be honest. You know, I'd like to hear their voices coming through. So, but there's great festivals that are happening around the UK that's making that possible.
A little bit on that. I think what we saw from the film is all about physical border and physical barriers. Once people arrive in the UK, it's kind of safety, security here, but the mental barriers is more difficult. I think that's why this engagement is important. It's not really easy for someone. You grow up in a country, you've witnessed a lot of things. All of a sudden you land in a new country, new language, new culture, surrounded by different people. We just saw it from the guy who, when arrived, scared of people. All of those kind of things, this is all mental barrier. We need to work on that. And when we break that barriers, then the integration, then the multiculturalism, then the embracement all starts.
Thank you very much. And we've got one last question online from Rosa. The stories spanned local, international, current and historic. You said 7 were told all. Creatively, how did you identify them from the vast experiences out there? Louise.
How did you choose the 7 stories?
How
did I choose the 7 stories? So I do all these kind of exercises as a writer. I deployed those, and I thought, you know, 7 boats, 7 stories of the world, and then I sort of started to go, well, what's important and what are the different angles that I can come at this with? And yeah, I sort of boiled everybody up in all the experiences, but what I mainly did is what I do for most characters. I do this object exercise, and it's miraculous when I get other people to do it and when I do it myself. And that's how I pick out the humanity and the details, the small, small details. Does that make sense? So they're all the 7 characters are boiled up with the many, many thousands of people that I've personally met and both welcomed in Greece and just hung out with here, and all my mates. There's a few guys that I met in Kos that kept in touch with me from Kurdistan, and like they you know, they've known I've been writing this, so they've been like, how can we help? But I've kind of not wanted to take their stories. So I've somehow reflected that. There's a character, Kareem, that you never see. And so, yeah, I've kind of matched up his story with what's happened to people when they've arrived here and how they got here. Because that's the other thing I want people to remember. You can't imagine the journeys people have to take. The border between Iran and Turkey, there's a mountain pass, and the people told me that story constantly as they got off the boats about what had just happened. But of course, being human, they kind of have to leave that story behind. So I haven't told that story because I want people to find out what's going on, because I've kind of told it as well in another way, in this BBC ballad that I wrote, The Island, the Sea, the Volunteer and the Refugee, where that is kind of everybody's voices that we captured. Yeah.
I think one of the interesting things also about the piece is that it talks about movement of people across time as well. We have the story of Santiago, who's the mayor of Tembe in the story, who's come from the Basque country during Franco. We've got a story from the American-Vietnam War. We've got stories from different places but also different times, and it also helps us reflect about the fact that this has been happening for so long, because in a way it's the nature of human beings to move and to cross borders and to migrate, you know, we'll do that.
Absolutely. But the fact remains that at the moment there are 65 million people on the move, the same size as the population of the UK. The UK's response so far has been feeble, I think. We will have to take some responsibility for this crisis. People will have been moved in the way that I was moved when I went to see the show on Wednesday. They will want to do something. Just to sum up, what should they do now? When this discussion finishes, right now, what can they do to try and help?
I would like just to say, Louis, I'm from Kurdistan. I left Kurdistan 20 years ago. I had to cross the border between Iraq and Iran, 8 hours on the mountain, then Iran to Turkey again, 9 hours mountain, then took me basically 1 year and 1 month to reach safety in Europe. But what can we do? It's like I said, these refugees, I am one of them. It's just talk to refugees, encourage for contribution. That's really important, because the rise of right wing across Europe, this is a fear for people like me and people like yourself as well. So that's why we need a lot of work from the refugee sector as well, and refugees ourselves individual. It's not just about yourself, it's about us as well. We need to work hard, we need to contribute, we need to make this country our country, because we left our country. Now after 20 years I am still here. I always say I was born in Kurdistan but reborn in Wales. So if we have that mentality, I think we can move forward. And yes.
Beautiful, thank you. Malu?
I think in the UK and in lots of places we have something that is amazing that a lot of other countries don't have, and it's called democracy. And it means that we all have a vote and we all have a voice, and the change is it's in our hands. I come from a country where we didn't have democracy for a long time, and a lot of people died for it because they believed in something that they were not supposed to believe in. So whilst we have it, and if you have it, wherever you are, treasure it and execute it. Go and vote, and your voice will be heard. And then you can make the change that you want to see.
Turn up to the shelters. Understand that if you're an asylum seeker in this country, you absolutely get nothing. You get nothing. So be a neighbour, be kind, take round a pot of rice and peas, you know what I mean? Find people, because they're there, they're sleeping on the streets actually, you know? So just go, so, you know, same with like homeless people. Stop and talk, don't just give money, try and sort of strike up a relationship, don't be frightened. You know, the news is scaring you, but don't be scared, because they're just human beings.
Brilliant. Thank you very, very much. And I'm just going to do a final shout out. If you do want to find out more information, you can find it on the Wales Refugee Council website. Also, another charity here in Cardiff, Oasis, that does a lot of brilliant work with refugee and asylum seekers. Please do go to their website. They have regular meetings, coffee mornings, where you can go along and chat to people. I'm sure they would really welcome your conversation and your thoughts. We're going to end the discussion there. I'm just going to hand back to Catherine, but before I do, a huge thank you to all of you in the room, to everyone watching online, and we know there are people in India and America watching, so special thank you to them, and also to our group of brilliant artists from across Europe at the IETN meeting in Llandudno, and also to the B-Side Festival in Dorset. Thank you very, very much.
Diolch, Rebecca. Thank you also to Rebecca for chairing the panel. Diolch yn fawr. And diolch thanks to British Council for their kind support, for Tramshed Tech for organising the live stream, and of course to the audience for their questions. Diolch yn fawr I chi gyd. Cyn I fi orffen, just gair I ddeud, os allwch chi fod yn imbych y pysgod fori, mae yna chydig o cynerol I weld y sioe yn fyw. Felly ewch I wefan National Theatre Wales a mynwch docyn. Os na, peidiwch â phoeni, allwch chi wylio y ffrwd fyw welsoch chi heno ar wefan National Theatre Wales, ar dudalen Facebook y cwmni, ac ar wefan Theatre a Dawns British Council yn fuan iawn. If you can be in 10B tomorrow night, please get a ticket. There are a few left, and that's the final performance. If not, don't panic. The live stream will be available to watch on National Theatre Wales' website, on its Facebook account, and on British Council's Theatre and Dance page very, very soon. Diolch yn fawr I chi gyd am ddod. Thank you very much for coming. Nos da.